उदास मन के साह्रो द्यारो क्षितिज पारी तिमी.
Our first guest this year is a dear friend and a phenomenal musician out of Nepal, Kathmandu, gateway to the roof of the world, Ashesh Dangol. Very, very warm welcome to you, Ashesh, on Music for Good. We're so happy to, though it's Nepal's a neighbor country, we're very happy to have you participate with us from outside of India and, share your journey, experiences and everything. So very warm welcome to you, Ashesh. Thanks for being here.
Namaste, Rajesh. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for inviting me.
We have a couple of questions that we have that we'll start with, but one of the one that I really want to get out of the way is the fact that when I first came to know you, I realized that you were also known as Himalayan Hendrix, which is a nickname that you got. And tell us, how did you get that nickname? What's that all about?
Thank you, Rajesh. When I toured in Norway and Germany in 2010, I gave a very special performance in Husbjerg in Norway, and one of the music critics wrote me the new Hendrix from Kathmandu. And then when I went to tour in Germany, they introduced me as the new Jimi Hendrix from Kathmandu. And the music critics and the press, they started to name me the Himalayan Hendrix. And then that's how I got the title from Europe.
Okay, and that's the first time actually I, should I say, had the good fortune to discover of you, because I was just roaming the streets of Kathmandu, as you know, in the evening, enjoying the sights and the sounds, and I just followed the music, and I asked a few people. I was like, just for our listeners, if you ever end up going to Kathmandu, you'll find that there's music spilling out in the streets from all the various venues and bars and restaurants. There's a lot of musical talent in Kathmandu, and you'll hear a lot of stuff. But there was this incredible sound that was coming out of a bar, I think, on the first floor, and you could just hear a very authentic Jimi Hendrix sound on the guitar, and I just had to to go and see who it was, and I walked up a couple of flights of steps, and lo and behold, Ashesh, who I'm speaking with today, is whom I found. And obviously, Ashesh, you and your band play a lot of Hendrix covers and tunes, and I suppose that's the concert that you were referring to in Norway. But
Yeah.
I'm just going to move on from there, because as I've gotten to know Ashesh over all these years, that is just one part of what he does, and which is why I wanted to literally get that question and share that thing with all our listeners much earlier. But actually, Ashesh is an ambassador for the blues in Nepal and in this part of the world, if I may dare say. And that is really where his love for music comes from. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ashesh. And not only that, but he has done a lot with making the blues very local and relevant for Kathmandu. So Ashesh, please share with us how you came into contact with the blues. How did that become your sort of your main genre that you love so much, and how have you adapted that to being local in Nepal and Kathmandu?
Rajesh, during my teenage, I used to listen to lots of rock music, and then we used to um, gather in places and just play guitar with friends. And that's how I discovered Mr. Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton. So I was listening to lots of Eric Clapton back then, and I was listening to his Crossroads series. And then one of my friend gave me this special tape, audio tape of Mr. Jimi Hendrix with the hats on, and the smoke was coming out, and very nice picture. And the first song that I listened from that audio tape was "Hear My Train A Coming." I hear my train a coming, and then suddenly this very very uh, awesome guitar playing, you can feel that Jimi Hendrix was playing right in front of you. The rawness of that sound, and that gave me some kind of uniqueness of playing that I have never heard before in my life. Soon after then, I dig into Jimi Hendrix a lot, and then I started to read about him. That's how I discovered Mr. Buddy Guy, Muddy Waters, Howling Wolf, Son House, and then later on I discovered Stevie Ray Vaughan. And more I dig deeper into Jimi Hendrix, more I was digging deeper into the blues. And that's how I started to play all those 12-bar riffs and the rawness of those sounds of like the Robert Johnson. And then I started to read a lot about the Black American history, and soon after that, I can relate that history with my own people. That how the people I'm born native in the Newa family, and my ancestors, my grandfather, they all were farmers, and we were also slaved by the kings back then. So it gave me some kind of like understanding of my own native culture, trying to relate my life, my people's life with the blues. That's how uh, I started to have a love affair with the blues.
Oh, that's
That's
that's absolutely fascinating. But I noticed in all of your music, and you have a lot of original music, um, that you have, adapted the ethos of the blues into the local culture. And there are some tracks that I've heard that even have almost a blues and a folk kind of. I don't even want to call it a fusion. It's very unique. And how did you go about integrating this into the local music, and just share a little bit more about that, and also your band that did that.
um, I, I am, and I was always fascinated with our Eastern classical music. You can say the Nepali classical or Eastern classical or Indian classical music. Back then, I used to listen lots of sitars and tablas and the traditional Newa music. Since I'm born in Newa family, uh, the dime, da, ki, those kind of percussion.
Right.
This kind of rhythm playing. It's very similarity between the Indian classical music or Indian cultural music and the Nepali traditional music. And if you since you have been in Nepal so many times, you can see the ideology between the India and Nepal, all these native people's music. It's very 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 powerful. It has got its own philosophy. It has got its own ideology behind the music. it's it's a very clear form of art. So I can say it's in my blood, like. So you go outside and you listen all those musicians playing in the street, all these versions, and every festivals, people playing the street with all these dime baza, with festivals, and every time when we have the wedding ceremonies, we have traditional music playing. So that gave me a deeper understanding and the root of our music. So in Nepal, if you see the whole picture of Nepal, lots of more than 129 languages still still speak in Nepal. So
Wow.
129 languages. So you can see, like, you can imagine how many music will be there. So if you go to Tarai, they have a very fast rhythm section, and you go more upper hill, it's slow down. And in Kathmandu, it's like middle between those Tarai and the Himalayan region. So in our family, somehow my family doesn't have those opportunity to learn music uh, inside our community. We call it the guti. If you know about the guti, it's some kind of like we tribes have our own community that if you belong to that tribe,
Right.
then they will accept you to be as a student of music. But
Ah,
unfortunately, I didn't have that opportunity. So I always have that crave for that music.
wow. Okay.
And though I don't have that opportunity, I always try to bring that kind of sound in the guitar. And since I was very fascinated with the sound of Mr. Ravi Shankar and Zakir Hussain, Hari Prasad Chaurasia, and if you know, maybe you have already listened to the album Sakti.
Yes, of course.
Correctly.
Yes.
So I always want to form a band like that
Yes.
in my teenage. So after I studied more into I go deeper into the blues, but still I was more fascinated with those kind of Eastern classical and traditional form of Newa music. So now what I'm doing is like just try to
Blended.
bring,
Yeah.
yeah, bind all these form of music in one form of music.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And for our listeners, you'll get a flavor of that, at the beginning of the show and a little bit more at the end, where you'll hear some of Ashesh's original work. And now you spend time between Nepal and uh, the United States of America, which is the home place of the blues. What have you been up to in the US? And do tell us. We hope that the culture of the blues is alive and well, since it's the root and the father of so many different genres of music, including jazz and rock and roll and so many others.
Oh yeah, um, I have studied blues by myself and never got an opportunity to meet the real blues musicians in my life. And I always wanted to um, meet the Native American peoples and the uh, African American people who have introduced the blues in the world. And so I went to United States, and then I performed in this very special bar called the Keys Lounge in Texas, Fort Worth, Texas. And I played a very special song called Texas Float over there. And it was really amazing to it was really amazing that I got an opportunity to perform with the real blues musician in Texas. And then that was in 2012. So in 2012, I met lots of blues musicians in Texas, tour around in different places in Texas. So it gave me a kind of understanding of how people live in the United States, how how difficult, how culturally different than ours. And then I went back again in 2017, and I toured from Maryland to Florida to Georgia to Mississippi, Memphis. What I saw back then is like the blues is alive and very well
Oh,
during
that's
the
great to know. Yeah.
yeah, in Memphis, Tennessee, during the Blues Awards show and the IBC Challenge. I have seen hundreds and hundreds of bands and thousands of people pouring down in the Bell Street, and even I get opportunity to perform with so many different musicians in Bell Street, and it gave me an idea and experience that blues is something that need to be cherished, and people love, and people have kept this blues as a culture, not only a music. It's become a form of cultural art.
Now, tell us, Ashish, you've always been front and center of so many causes as I've known you over the years. And you've used music as a medium to share a larger message for change and for greater good. Can you share with us some of your experiences or any special experience in that regard? And also understand that you're involved with something called Blues for a Cause. So if you can share with our listeners what that's all about. Yeah.
From my childhood, it has always been very, very difficult, um, both financially, um, both mentally, both socially and politically, since there's lots of issues um, in Kathmandu and in Nepal, and it's directly or indirectly affecting my childhood. And what I thought back then is like I have never got an opportunity to have a very good or better education in my life. So when I was able to give something to the society, I did this Kathmandu Blues Festival in 2006 for the orphanage home. So with this festival, the money generated from that festival, we donated some part of the money to this orphanage home. So that's the very first beginning of my um, career with the charities and for the better good of the society. And after that, another very good cause we did is during the earthquake in 2015.
Oh, I remember that. I was there a day before it.
So what we did is like nobody wants to go outside. Everybody was very, very terrified. Everybody
Yes.
was in panic, mental depressions, you named it. So
Yes, it was a very difficult time, I remember.
yeah. So with my teammates and all my friends, including Jon Gangdal from Norway, we decided that this is a time the live music has to go on. So we did a very first concert in Tamil and invite all the people for free. And then we performed a 3 hour session over there, and it was a very, very good relief for people to come gather around with and share their feelings and be with friends and try to be happy in that very crucial time. And even me and my bandmates went to Norway for a fundraising for the fundraise, and we donate lots of money and build lots of temporary shelters uh, for the earthquake victims. And then now in 2020 we have COVID-19. Before the lockdown happened in Nepal, I came back to Nepal, and soon after that, soon after the week the lockdown happened in Nepal. So I decide why not I do a virtual live session? And then I I brought this idea among my friends that I met in different part of the world, and then they all agreed, and then I started. Okay, let's heal the world with the music. And then through the Blues Society page, we said, okay, this is a blues for a cause, and let's heal the world during this COVID-19 pandemic with the music. And uh, yes, we did almost. Now it's 53rd series, and almost been a year.
Now, tell us, Nepal and especially Kathmandu is a global melting pot. It's the, it's the gateway for everyone coming in and wanting to go to Everest and doing different treks. There's a lot of amazing quotient of local music talent there. What inspires the youth into music, and especially Western music, if I may ask? I mean, all kinds of music, but one sees a lot of talent in Western music in Kathmandu. So, what's been an inspiration for the youth for this kind of music?
Um, Nepal and mostly Kathmandu has always been melting pot for all the people from different backgrounds and all part of the world. And Kathmandu has been influenced by Western music and Indian music. So back in 60s, marijuana and hashish, they were legal. Legal back then. So lots of hippies used to come and visit Kathmandu. So you can also see that in old Indian movies. Um, I forgot the name of the movies, but Hare Rama, Hare Krishna kind of time, right?
Right.
So all those hippies, they brought lots of 60s and 70s music back then. And during my school days, uh, I used to listen to a very special broadcast from our national radio station, and they used to play a music from Beatles, Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, you named it. And even like Cat Stevens has visited in Kathmandu, and he has a written song about Kathmandu. Bob Seger, he has also written a song about Kathmandu. Even Peter Green has formed a band named Kathmandu back then. And since I was listening to this very special program broadcast from our national radio, Sunday Pop, I have got this opportunity to listen to all those 60s and 70s music, and that's how I got influence.
Yeah, and I'm sure many others as well. And now that you mention it, it brings back something that I read in I think one of it might have been Paulo Coelho's books, actually called Hippie, and he
Yep.
talked about taking a journey on the magic bus from Amsterdam to Kathmandu, which is
Yes, yes, yes.
I suppose something that used to do a regular run or a route, from Amsterdam to Kathmandu. It almost makes it sound like you're going from one town to another, but it's literally across the entire world. So I'm sure that must have been a very interesting time, and obviously there's been a lot of influences, as you mentioned, um, because of that. Uh, tell our listeners a little bit more about uh, Nepal and other parts of Nepal, and also Kathmandu as it is today, because it's got a wonderful culture and people. And I know you've already mentioned a few different things about the music and the different languages. But what else could you think you could share with our listeners? I'm sure many of them are very, very keen to make a trip to this
Yeah.
wonderful place.
Um, Kathmandu is definitely a very important place for all we Buddhists, Hindus, you know, um, and especially for all the yogis.
Yes.
It used to be a hub for all those tantra and mantra and yoga and samadhi. So if you go in the middle of Kathmandu, or we call it Basantapur Hanuman Doka, you will see this very unique sculpture of Kala Bhairav. So imagine that this big sculpture of Kala Bhairav situated in the middle of Kathmandu, and all those Shivalinga everywhere in Kathmandu. You pass every corner, there will be the sculpture of Ganesh.
Yes.
You go up hills, you will see all this stupa of the Buddha. So religiously also, it's a center for all we Asians. So this is a very Nepal is a very powerful and very meditative, very spiritual place for all we human beings. And then if you go in some very native Newa people's valley like Kokana, um, it's 30 minutes from Kathmandu. Then you will see the ancient civilization. They have the history of more than 20,000 years history of this modern ancient civilization. There's a very old old stone from the Shikali. So the ideology of Shikali is still preserved over there. So there's lots to see and lots to learn from these different places. Um, Now I'm like 43 years old, and before I was more involved in modern culture and this and that. Now finally I have studied a bit about our native civilizations and its ideology, and it's very beautiful. I I think people should come and visit Nepal and Kathmandu and see this kind of ancient civilization.
No, that's wonderful. And of course, at the same time, uh, from all the time I've spent there speaking with you, knowing you, it's such a progressive youth as well that, is not only embracing its own ancient culture and civilization, but also uh, the advancements of the West. And that bodes very well, I think, for any place on the planet that could have a good balance between the two. Uh, what a wonderful opportunity for us to get together again, Ashesh, on this special episode for us from Music for Good. Great to see you again. Thanks so much for taking the time out and speaking with us. And as I mentioned to you before we went live, I promised you and the band that we would do a tour in India, and that is a promise I have yet to keep. And we'll hopefully make that come true in the year of 2021. So I really hope that we can see you here in India, and you can share your music with us over here.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you for this opportunity.